Now let's take a look inside the NFC East and your Super Bowl champions for the 2014 season, where the New England Patriots finished the regular season with a 12-4 record, able to wrap up home field advantage throughout. And before the season started, this was my pick to reach the Super Bowl coming out of the AFC. I certainly gave the Denver Broncos the respect that they deserve. They represented the AFC in 2013, so until they were knocked off, I certainly had them as the favorite, or at least the team to beat coming out of the AFC. The things that made me lean towards the New England Patriots were really their additions on defense. When you looked at what New England did last year, I think Tom Brady showed us why he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, having rookies and kind of people in and out of the lineup all year at the wide receiver position, yet he was still able to do enough to make it work, to the tune of 25 TD passes, over 4,000 yards. You know that New England's a team that finds ways to run the football effectively when they need to, but it was their secondary that really had been their Achilles heel the last couple years. And when I seen them go out and pick up that free agent tandem of Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner, I honestly believe that those guys played to their full capability, which were at an elite level. If you think about Darrelle Revis, prior to that ACL tear a couple years ago, he was the best defensive back in the NFL. You think about Brandon Browner last year, prior to getting caught with the performance enhancement drug issue, he was the fourth wheel in that vaunted Legion of Boom, sitting opposite of Richard Sherman. And so both of those guys came in this year. Took him a little while to get it going. Browner missed the first couple games due to that suspension from last year, battled some ankle injuries. Reeves just took a while to get his feet wet, but once those guys firmly got their feet planted in the ground, there's a reason that the New England Patriots pass defense ranked second in the NFL. The New England also did a great job being able to compensate for losing Pro Bowl inside linebacker Jared Mayo, suffered an ACL injury for the second straight year. New England's such a great team at making acquisitions, able to go out and get linebacker Akeem Ayers from the Tennessee Titans. Came in, did an outstanding job helping to fill in for Mayo, who's such a great guy at stopping the run, just really getting everybody in place. He's a leader on that defense. So you bring in Akeem Ayers. You still had veteran Rob Ninkovich. You still had Dante Hightower, another fit guy who had been there a couple years from Alabama. Jamie Collins also came in and did an outstanding job. On the front lines, Vincent Wilfork certainly was a staple there. Rookie Dominic Easley able to come in, sit alongside Wilfork, provide some beef in the middle, moving Devin McCourty from defensive back to safety, having some more speed back there. So New England really pushed all the right buttons, really put all the guys in the places they need to be. And I tell you, there's a reason that this New England Patriots team is the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL. When you talk about getting the right guys to get the job done, if you ever notice that with the New England Patriots, the players that they bring in, high IQ guys who may not be the most physically, athletic, gifted, stats might not jump off the charts, may not be the fastest guys to blow you away with their physical intangibles, but one thing that these guys know how to do is be in the right place at the right time, pretty much all the time. And that really is something that gets the job done. When you flip to the offensive side of the football, Tom Brady was outstanding as always. And the thing that really helped this offense out was a healthy Rob Gronkowski. 82 catches, 1,124 yards, 12 TD receptions. Gronk was an absolute monster this year. There's really no player who can defend him. You line him up against linebackers, he's too fast. You line him up against safeties, he's too physical. You line him up against defensive backs, and he's just too big. And so Rob Gronkowski had a huge impact on this New England Patriots offense, getting back intact with defenses having to pay him so much attention. It allowed for newcomer Brandon LaFell, who really exploded onto the scene in Week 4 against the Kansas City Chiefs, even though it was a loss. And Julian Edelman has been the mainstay there. Guy, many years, understands that system in and out. A guy very hard to keep up with, as he's very quick working in short spaces. So you certainly like that. Couple other guys who certainly contributed. You're talking about Shane Vereen catching the football out of the backfield, Danny Amendola when his number was called, and Tim Wright a nice pickup. They traded Logan Mankins to Tampa Bay for Tim Wright, a tight end, able to provide some excellent depth and do some other things that New England needed. Stephen Ridley went down early for the year with an injury running the football. At that point, we've seen Jonas Gray have over 200 yards in a Sunday night game against the Indianapolis Colts. A few weeks later, you're seeing New England go out and tap the shoulder of LeGarrette Blount, a guy who ran for over 200 yards and 4 TDs in a playoff game the year before against the Indianapolis Colts, paid huge dividends with 148 rushing yards and 3 TDs in this year's game. And so New England Patriots, obviously cream of the crop, but really got off the hook. I think we all going to remember that 2014 New England Patriots season as a season where they did an excellent job, did everything that they had to do, but in essence, it really should have not been enough, as the Seattle Seahawks, primarily their offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, and head coach Pete Carroll, really blew a major call, throwing the football on 2nd down and 1 with 26 seconds left on a goal line with the Super Bowl on the line. That's a play that Seattle obviously should have ran in for a touchdown, and I'm pretty sure if that was the case, Seattle goes up 4 points with about 20 seconds left. There's really no time for New England to recover and win that Super Bowl. Next, at 9-7, you had the Buffalo Bills, and this was a year where it was really easy to see where the Bills' problems were. They were all on the offensive side of the football in turnovers, in penalties, in silly mistakes. Really the same things that have hurt this Buffalo Bills team for years now. You look at this Bills defense, they were absolutely outstanding. One of the top teams in the league stopping the run. You're talking about Pro Bowl defensive tackles, Marcel Darius and Big Kyle Williams, both of those guys pretty much immovable on the inside. And then you look at the defensive ends, you're talking about Jerry Hughes and Super Mario Williams. You got 3 guys on that front line getting double-digit sacks. They lost their star inside linebacker Kiko Alonso, but were able to do a great job. Go out and get free agent pickup Brandon Spikes, bringing over his winning ways from the New England Patriots. Bills also did a great job at drafting Preston Brown, linebacker from Texas. The Bills also started to see some of their secondary draft picks start to flourish. We were talking about Stephon Gilmore. We're talking about Leotis McKelvin before he went down with an injury. I also love the safety tandem of Aaron Williams, came out of Texas a few years ago, and Leon Searcy. And so this Bills defense, absolutely outstanding. We've seen them stand up tall on the road against Peyton Manning, holding him to less than 200 yards, not a single TD pass, 2 interceptions. We've seen them the following week against Aaron Rodgers, not allow a single TD pass. But the Bills, in general, it was certainly some key games that they dropped. And we're now going to turn to the offensive side of the football to see how that was done. This Bills offense has to get it together. They started off the season with second-year quarterback E.J. Manuel. Obviously, he was not the answer. They benched him for veteran Kyle Orton, who, yes, came in and did a better job. But really, in the most important games, Orton was a no-show, and I don't put it on him alone. You look at the Bills' offensive line, that is an area that they've got to address. The Bills have not spent their first-round pick or hit the free agent market to really bring in those blue-chip, top-tier offensive linemen. And it was a reflection this year because the Bills really struggled to run the football. And you wonder, with some guys like Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller, how does that happen? And so not being able to run the football, you have a quarterback who, I would say inconsistent. Kyle Orton certainly did a well enough job to win the Buffalo Bills some games, but I would say in some very crucial moments, through some key interceptions or just not able to complete the passes that needed to be completed. Primarily, you're talking about your rookie star wide receiver, Sammy Watkins, another great receiver in that rookie class, showed all the flashes. I think we all understand why he was taken so high, but because he had some very explosive games, teams were really focused in on him. And the Bills, let's face it, they don't have any established receivers. They tried to bring over Mike Williams, a veteran from Tampa Bay, got some home roots in that Buffalo, Niagara Falls area, but he was disgruntled. He didn't pan out. I think we all see now why Tampa Bay let him go. Ton of talent. Guy doesn't have the work ethic and the hunger to get it done. And then Robert Woods, in his second year from USC, did a decent enough job, but he's still getting his feet wet. So when you have young receivers like that, you're starting a rookie and a second-year guy, A lot of pressure on those guys. They're still learning the ropes and how to get the job done. You really need a pinpoint passer to get the ball to those guys. Kyle Orton, not that. And then as we alluded to, the Bills unable to run the football, so you can't even lean on play action to try to get the job done. So, that kind of leads us to where we are now. And again, look, for these Buffalo Bills, they finished the year at 9-7, really one win outside of that wild card spot. And when you look at some of the losses they had, on the road at Houston, they're winning. E.J. Manuel throws a bad interception, return for a touchdown by J.J. Watt to essentially lose that game. The Bills are up double digits on the Kansas City Chiefs at home before fourth quarter turnovers, muffing punts, fumbling the ball, things of that nature turn that football game around. And then late in the year, after that impressive home victory at Green Bay, you go out to Oakland, a trap game, traveling across the country. You had a time zone game, but you're playing against a rookie quarterback. The expectation is there. We just seen your defense shut down Peyton Manning, shut down Aaron Rodgers, two of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. The Bills flat out dropped that football game, and that's the one that broke their back. They win that game, they would have had at least the inside track to that wild card spot. You look at this Bills team coming back this year, you love what you see on defense. Yes, they've got to make it a priority to sign Marcel Darius, but Kiko Alonso is going to be back in the mix. So you're thinking their defense could be even better, but they've got to get it together on offense, and it's really on all levels. At wide receiver, I think they're fine. Sammy Watkins makes the progression. Robert Woods makes the progression, but they've got to get younger at tight end. Scott Chandler, he's long in the tooth. You got to upgrade your offensive line, and they've got to figure out what they're going to do at the quarterback position. Are you going to go with E.J. Manuel? Is he going to be the answer? So far, the Bills don't have confidence in him. We know that Kyle Orton decided to retire in the offseason, so it's going to be Manuel or somebody new. And then at that running back, are you going to resign C.J. Spiller? If you don't, you got Fred Jackson and Bryce Brown, but can that offensive line open up enough holes in the running game for it to be effective? Next, the Miami Dolphins, a team at 8-8, and I think Miami exactly were what I thought they were going to be, a team inconsistent. I think if it's one consistency that you do hear about the Miami Dolphins team echoed around the NFL is you don't know which team is going to show up weekly. And I think more than anything, you don't know which team offensively is going to show up weekly. Look, when you look at this Miami Dolphins team on paper coming into the season, I had them ranked inside of the top 10. They certainly finished the year prior in that fashion, in that dominating fashion. When you're talking about a front four that features pass rushing master Cameron Wake, you have big Randy Starks and Jared Udrick inside. You have Vernon Oliver on the other side passing, getting after the quarterback. You looked at their linebacking core. You had Phillip Wheeler. You had Koa Misi. You had Darnell Ellaby. So you like those guys. And then you looked at the secondary and you make the additions to upgrade. You had Brent Grimes there and Rashard Jones, and then you go out and bring in a guy like Louis Delmas from Detroit, heavy impact player, knows always around the football, really knows how to get the job done. And then you bring in Cortland Finnegan, I think a perfect fit, another feisty cornerback who's a little bit better suited for the wide receivers in the AFC. So, I looked at that Miami Dolphins team, and my concerns weren't about that defense, who played well and really in the games Miami won. They were a huge part of that responsibility, but it was the offense. You had a new offensive coordinator in Bill Lazor. I don't think really everybody bought into him. Ryan Tannehill still trying to make those progressions, but I think it was the passing game. Look, Miami did everything they could to be successful. They went out and got tackle Brandon Albert from the Kansas City Chiefs. They drafted a tackle in the first round. They brought in free agent Noshawn Moreno to go along with Lamar Miller to help the running game. They drafted Jarvis Landry from Oklahoma to pair him up with Mike Wallace, Charles Clay, Brian Hartline, Rasheed Matthews, those guys they had in the passing game, but for whatever reason, it just didn't click. And I think injury certainly played a part in it. Not having your starting center Pouncey to start the season off. He was out injured. Noshawn Moreno, after an outstanding debut, 134 rushing yards, 2 TDs against the New England Patriots in the home win. He goes out the next week for about 4 or 5 games. The first game back, he's tearing his ACL, so you don't have that dual threat, to lean on the run on the ground. And then, Ryan Tannehill in the offense, the passing game just inconsistent. This team unable to get Mike Wallace the football. He's a guy who can really stretch the field. That's why Miami brought him over in the first place, to give him a little bit more vertical of a threat. Well, he can't get the ball downfield. Brian Hartline, he was in that pretty much the majority of this year. And then Charles Clay battled injury. So, this Miami Dolphins team, when I look at them in the offseason, hopefully they can keep that defense together. But they've got to find a way to get it together on offense. I think with a healthy offensive line, Ryan Tannehill takes another step forward. Now what do you do at the wide receiver position? Because we don't know if they're going to re-sign Mike Wallace. Brian Hartline is up in age. Again, he fell off. Can Charles Clay get back healthy? They signed Noshawn Moreno to a one-year deal. Do you bring him back? Does his injury problems throughout the course of his career scare you off? If nothing else, you do like Lamar Miller being able to get up over 1,000 yards and 8 TDs. And let's give Ryan Tannehill his credit. He did play well for the most part. I just think overall Miami's offensive identity is lacking. They're a team that when I watch play, they get the game dictated to them. They don't come out and say, this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. However the game, which direction the wind blows, their offense kind of just follows suit, and that's something that you simply can't have happen. And then last but not least, you had the New York Jets at 4-12. Bad year for the Jets, but again, I think the writing was on the wall early. They tried to go out and make some moves in free agency, getting running back Chris Johnson from Tennessee, bringing over Eric Decker from Denver. But I think when you looked at Eric Decker, we knew that playing alongside Demaryius Thomas, Peyton Manning, those other great weapons in Denver, certainly helped his numbers to get inflated. Being the number one receiver in New York, he was going to draw the top defensive back. And when you have a quarterback like Geno Smith, who was in his second year and struggled mightily yet again, you know that he can't get the football to Decker in the fashion that Peyton Manning did. Chris Johnson not able to do enough to even secure a starting job. That was a surprise, but we have to give respect where it's due. Chris Ivory, the much harder and tough-nosed runner, certainly earned to have more of the playing time. But again, the New York Jets, when you have a second-year quarterback like Geno Smith, who's still learning what it is to be an effective quarterback in the NFL, your team is going to struggle. Not too many weapons in the passing game. Jeremy Curley, good slot receiver, but he wasn't going to get the job done. Other than that, New York really didn't have anybody else to throw the football to, so you knew that the offense was going to be very limited. Their front seven on defense played well. You still had the likes of Muhammad Wilkerson, Sheldon Richardson, David Harris, Calvin Pace. So their front seven still was very stout, but their secondary, surprisingly, that had been a strong suit for many years for Rex Ryan, their secondary was in shambles. Their second-year player, D. Milliner, who they spent a first-round pick on a year before, he was battled injuries. He wasn't on the football field all year. You had a rookie, Calvin Pryor, who certainly looked good at safety, but he was learning the ropes out there. The rest of those guys were pretty much running around with their heads cut off. And so, this New York Jets team, now has a new head coach in Todd Bowles. He certainly got his work cut out for him. You've got a third-year quarterback who doesn't seem like he's quite getting it yet. You need him to really, start picking up and making progress. You've got to surround him with some better wide receivers and passing targets. And then you've got to get that secondary together. Again, this is a passing league. And as well as the Jets front seven played, top 5 against the run, able to get pressure at times. But if you have a poor secondary, your team is not going to be successful, especially when you couple that with a quarterback who just isn't playing that well right now.